I built my empire one brick at a time, starting with nothing but a high school diploma and a chip on my shoulder the size of Manhattan. By 35, I owned half the commercial real estate in 3 counties, had my face on Forbes, and could buy and sell most of the men who used to look right through me in boardrooms. But none of that mattered when I got the message that would change everything. Check the security footage from the Oakland loft. They're not careful. The text came from an unknown number at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my penthouse office reviewing contracts for a $50 million acquisition when my phone buzzed. I almost deleted it. Almost. My name is Daphne, and I've never been one to ignore my instincts. That message made my stomach drop in a way that had nothing to do with the 3 espressos I'd downed that evening. The Oakland loft. I knew exactly which property they meant. A luxury condo I'd purchased 6 months ago under one of my shell companies. Manuel had suggested it, said we needed a private space for client meetings away from the main office. My fiancé had a way of making everything sound like brilliant strategy. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then read it again. And again. "Zara, you awake?" I called my business partner and best friend. It was nearly 3 a.m., but Zara was a night owl like me. "Always. What's wrong? You sound weird." "I need you to pull the security footage from Oakland, the penthouse unit." "Which dates?" I closed my eyes. All of it.
"The last 6 months. Daphne, what's going on? Just do it, please." 20 minutes later, Zara was in my office with her laptop and a face that told me she'd already seen enough to know why I'd called. "How bad is it?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. "You sure you want to see this?" The footage was crystal clear, 4K resolution because I never cut corners on security. There was Manuel, my fiancé of 2 years, the man I'd pulled from a dead-end job at a failing firm and made into my right hand. And there was Sophie, my baby sister, the one I'd put through law school, the one whose wedding I'd paid for just 3 months ago. They weren't having a business meeting. I watched Manuel's hands in Sophie's hair, watched her laugh at something he whispered.
Watched them move through my property like they owned it, like they belonged there together. "How long?" My voice came out steady, which surprised me. "The timestamps go back 4 months, maybe longer. This is just what I could pull quickly." 4 months. Sophie had been married to Edgar for 3 months. The math was simple and nauseating. "There's more," Zara said quietly. She clicked to another file. "They're not exactly discreet. This footage was from last week. Sophie was wearing the necklace I'd given her for her birthday, a custom piece that cost more than most people's cars. Manuel was wearing the watch I'd bought him when he closed his first major deal. I felt something cold settle in my chest, replacing the shock. It wasn't heartbreak. That would come later, in private. This was something sharper, cleaner. This was rage crystallizing into purpose. "They think I'm stupid," I said. "Daphne." "They actually think I'm stupid." I stood up, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city I'd conquered. "Sophie's been coming to family dinners, hugging me, asking about wedding plans. Manuel's been sharing my bed, talking about our future, making 5-year business projections. What are you going to do?" I turned back to Zara. She'd known me for 15 years, since we were both scraping together rent money and eating ramen for dinner. She recognized the look on my face. "I'm going to destroy them." "Daphne, maybe you should think about this. Talk to them first. Get the whole story." "The whole story?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The whole story is that my sister and my fiancé have been playing house in my property while I've been working 18-hour days to build something that would benefit all of us. The whole story is that I paid for Sophie's law degree, her wedding, her honeymoon, and she's been repaying me by sleeping with my man." I sat back down, my mind already racing through possibilities. Manuel's been pushing for us to merge our personal and business finances, kept saying we should trust each other completely. And Sophie's been asking about my will, about what would happen to the company if something happened to me. "You think they planned this?" I think they're about to find out what happens when you betray someone who's spent her entire life learning how to win. Zara closed her laptop. What do you need me to do? That's why I loved her. No judgment, no lectures about forgiveness or taking the high road. Just loyalty and a willingness to go to war. First, I need everything. Every text, every call, every financial transaction. I want to know when they breathe. And then? I smiled, and I could feel how cold it was. Then we plan a wedding they'll never forget. I hired the private investigator the next morning. Marcus came highly recommended by my attorney, the kind of guy who could find dirt on a saint and make it stick in court. I need everything, I told him across the table at a downtown cafe. Financial records, phone logs, hotel receipts, restaurant bills. I want to know what they eat for breakfast. Marcus was in his 50s, gray-haired and unremarkable in the way that made him perfect for surveillance. How far back? Start with 6 months ago. That's when the Oakland property was purchased. And you want this kept quiet? I slid an envelope across the table. There's $10,000 in there. Another 20 when you deliver results. Complete discretion. He peeked inside the envelope and nodded. I'll need a week. You have 3 days. While Marcus worked, I played the perfect fiancé and sister. I had dinner with Manuel Tuesday night, listened to him complain about a difficult client while he ate the salmon I'd cooked. I even rubbed his shoulders when he claimed to be stressed. You're amazing, you know that? He said, pulling me onto his lap. I'm so lucky to have you. I kissed his forehead. We're lucky to have each other. Wednesday, Sophie called to invite me to lunch. We met at her favorite bistro, the one with the overpriced salads and pretentious wine list. You look tired, she said, studying my face across the table. Just busy with the Morrison deal. You know how it is. You work too hard, Daph. Maybe you should take a vacation after the wedding. You and Manuel could go somewhere romantic. I sipped my wine and watched her fidget with her wedding ring. That's a great idea. Where do you think we should go? Oh, I don't know. Maybe somewhere tropical? The Bahamas? Or... She paused, her cheeks flushing slightly. Manuel mentioned he's always wanted to see Italy. Did he? I kept my voice light. When did you two talk about Italy? Oh, you know, just in passing, at Edgar's birthday party last month. Edgar's birthday party where Manuel had left early, claiming he had a work emergency. The same night Sophie had disappeared for 2 hours, saying she needed to run home for something. That's sweet of you to remember, I said. You two have gotten close. Sophie's flush deepened. Well, he's going to be my brother-in-law. I want us all to be family. We are family, Sophie. We always have been. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I love you, Daph. You know that, right? Everything you've done for me, everything you've sacrificed. I'll never be able to repay you. I squeezed back. Family doesn't keep score. Thursday evening, Marcus called. We need to meet, he said. I've got what you asked for, but you're not going to like it. We met at the same cafe. This time, Marcus brought a thick manila folder and a tablet. They've been careful, but not careful enough, he said, sliding the folder across the table. Credit card receipts show they've been meeting regularly for 5 months. Always the same pattern. Manuel books a hotel room. Sophie shows up an hour later. I opened the folder. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, even parking garage tickets. A paper trail of betrayal, documented and dated. There's more. Marcus turned his tablet toward me. I got access to their text messages through a contact at the phone company. This is from last week. I read the messages, my hands steady even as my stomach churned. Manuel, can't wait to see you tonight. Wear the red dress. Sophie, Edgar's working late again. We have all evening. Manuel, after the wedding, we need to talk about our future. Sophie, I know I'm ready. Are you sure she won't suspect anything? Manuel, Daphne trusts me completely. She has no idea. Sophie, sometimes I feel guilty. Manuel, don't. You deserve to be happy. We both do. I scrolled through weeks of messages, plans to meet, complaints about their respective partners, discussions about running away together after they figured out how to access my assets. There's video too, Marcus said quietly. From the Oakland property. You want to see it? Show me. He pulled up the security footage on his tablet. High-definition video of my sister and my fiancé in the bedroom I'd furnished, on the bed I'd bought, under the roof I'd paid for. I watched for 30 seconds before I had to look away. How much do you have? Hours, different dates, different locations. They've been using your properties like their personal love nest. I closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. I need copies of everything, digital and physical. What are you planning to do? I stood up, leaving cash on the table for my untouched coffee. I'm planning to give them exactly what they deserve. That night, I sat in my office with all the evidence spread across my desk: photos, receipts, transcripts, video files, a complete record of their betrayal. I called Zara. It's worse than we thought, I said when she answered. How much worse? They're planning to leave their spouses. Manuel's been moving money into offshore accounts. Sophie's been researching divorce lawyers. Jesus, Daphne, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. I looked at my calendar. The wedding is in 10 days. We're going to make it a day no one forgets. What do you need me to do? I smiled in the darkness of my office. Help me plan the most memorable wedding ceremony in history. The next morning, I called Athena. She was a journalist who'd covered my rise in real estate for several publications, and we developed a professional friendship over the years. More importantly, she had connections everywhere and knew how to make stories go viral. Daphne, what a pleasant surprise, she said when she picked up. What can I do for you? I have a story for you, exclusive, but I need you to sit on it until I give you the green light. What kind of story? The kind that breaks the internet. Corporate fraud, family betrayal, adultery. All the ingredients for a perfect scandal. There was a pause. Are you the subject or the source? Both. I'm listening. I gave her the basics, enough to hook her interest without revealing my full plan. I'll send you everything next week. Photos, documents, video evidence, but you can't publish until I say so. This sounds personal, Daphne. It is, but it's also news. Trust me. After hanging up with Athena, I drove to the wedding venue. The seaside resort had been booked for 8 months, a beachfront location with panoramic ocean views. I'd paid for everything: the flowers, the catering, the photographer, even the string quartet. Ms. Daphne! The wedding coordinator, Maria, rushed over with her clipboard. Perfect timing. I wanted to go over the final details. Actually, I need to make some changes. Maria's smile faltered. Changes? The wedding is in 9 days. I need you to install a projection system behind the altar. Large screen, professional quality, and I'll need access to the sound system. A projection system? For what? Surprise video montage. You know how grooms love their sentimental slideshows. Maria looked uncertain, but nodded. I'll see what I can arrange. Money's no object, whatever it costs. Next, I visited my attorney, Richard. His office was in a glass tower downtown, the kind of place that charged by the minute and delivered results. I need to restructure the company, I told him, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. What kind of restructuring? I slid a document across his desk. Manuel currently holds 20% equity in Howard Properties. I want that changed to non-voting shares, effective immediately. Richard reviewed the paperwork. This is aggressive. He'll notice when the quarterly reports come out. The quarterly reports come out next month. The wedding is next week. Daphne, what's going on? I'm protecting my assets. Can you make it happen or not? I can make it happen, but if Manuel challenges this, let him try. That afternoon, Zara and I met at my house to plan the technical details. She'd brought her laptop and a bag of equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. "The venue has Wi-Fi, but we can't rely on it for something this important," she said, connecting cables to a small black box. "I'm setting up a dedicated hotspot. This baby can stream 4K video to 100 devices simultaneously." "How long will the upload take?" "With the files Marcus gave us? About 6 hours. I'll start tonight and have everything ready by morning." I opened a bottle of wine and poured 2 glasses. "Are you sure about this, Zara? Once we do this, there's no going back." She took a sip and looked at me seriously. "They betrayed you, Daphne. Your own sister and the man you were going to marry. They deserve whatever's coming. It's going to get ugly, really ugly. Good. Maybe other people will think twice before stabbing you in the back." Friday evening, Manuel came over for dinner. I'd made his favorite, steak with garlic potatoes. We sat on my terrace overlooking the city, sharing a bottle of expensive wine. "I've been thinking about our vows," he said, cutting into his steak. "What about them?" "I want to write my own. Something personal, you know? From the heart." I nearly choked on my wine. "That's sweet, Manuel. I'd love that." "What about you? Are you writing your own?" "I've been working on something special. I think it'll surprise everyone." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I love you, Daphne. I know I don't say it enough, but you're everything to me. You saved my career, gave me a future. I'll never forget that." I squeezed his hand and smiled. "I'll never forget it either." Saturday, Sophie called in tears. "Daphne, I need to talk to you. Can you come over?" I found her at her apartment, pacing the living room while Edgar was at work. "What's wrong?" "I think Edgar suspects something." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice calm. "Suspects what?" "He's been asking weird questions. About where I go during the day, why I'm always on my phone. Last night he wanted to see my text messages." "Did you show him?" "I deleted everything first. But Daphne, I'm scared." "What if he finds out?" I sat down on her couch and pulled her beside me. "Sophie, what exactly would he find out?" She broke down completely then, sobbing into my shoulder. "I've been so stupid, Daph. I've done something terrible. Tell me." "I can't. You'll hate me." I rubbed her back like I used to when we were kids and she'd had nightmares. "I could never hate you, Sophie. You're my sister. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." She pulled back and looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Promise me you'll still love me?" "I promise." But even as I said the words, I was thinking about the projection screen being installed at the venue, about the video files Zara was preparing, about the guest list that included everyone who mattered in our professional and social circles. "The wedding's tomorrow," Sophie said, wiping her eyes. "I should be happy for you." "You should be," I agreed. "It's going to be a day no one ever forgets." The morning of the wedding, I woke up at 5 a.m. feeling completely calm. No nerves, no second thoughts. Just crystal clear purpose. I'd chosen a sharp white pantsuit instead of a wedding dress. Armani, perfectly tailored, with a blazer that made my shoulders look like I could carry the world. When Zara saw me, she whistled. "You look like you're going to war." "I am." The venue was perfect. White chairs arranged in neat rows facing the ocean. An altar decorated with roses that cost more than most people's rent. The projection screen was hidden behind a wall of flowers, invisible unless you knew where to look. Guests started arriving at 2 p.m. I watched from the bridal suite window as cars pulled up. My business associates, Manuel's colleagues, family members who'd flown in from 3 states, Sophie's law school friends, Edgar's parents. Everyone who mattered was here to witness this. "The tech is ready," Zara said, checking her phone. "Athena's standing by with the online upload. You sure about the timing?" "Right after the vows, when everyone's attention is focused on us." At 2:30, I saw Sophie arrive with Edgar. She was wearing a pale blue dress, the one I'd helped her pick out last month. Edgar looked handsome in his navy suit, completely oblivious to what was coming. Manuel appeared at my door at 2:45, looking nervous in his black tuxedo. "You ready for this?" he asked, straightening his tie.
I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The ceremony began at 3 p.m. sharp. I walked down the aisle alone, no father to give me away, no bridesmaids trailing behind. Just me, moving toward my future with steady steps. The officiant, a friend of Manuel's from college, smiled as I reached the altar. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Manuel and Daphne." I barely heard the opening words. I was watching the faces in the crowd. Sophie sat in the third row, fidgeting with her purse. Edgar had his arm around her, completely relaxed. My business partners filled the front rows, along with clients who'd become friends over the years. "Manuel has chosen to write his own vows," the officiant announced. Manuel turned to face me, pulling a folded paper from his jacket pocket. "Daphne, when I met you 3 years ago, I was lost. You didn't just give me a job, you gave me a purpose. You believed in me when no one else would." Several people in the audience made soft, awe sounds. "You're brilliant, driven, and absolutely fearless. You've built an empire, and somehow you chose to share it with me. I promise to be worthy of that trust. I promise to stand by your side as we build our future together." He paused, his voice getting emotional. "I promise to love you, honor you, and never betray the faith you've placed in me." The irony was so perfect I almost laughed. "Daphne," the officiant prompted. "Your vows?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out my own piece of paper. But instead of unfolding it, I looked directly at Sophie. "I also wrote my own vows," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the beach. "But first, I have something to share with everyone." I nodded to Zara, who was standing near the back with a small remote control. The wall of flowers behind the altar split apart, revealing the massive projection screen. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as the screen flickered to life. "To my family and friends," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I believe in truth. I believe in loyalty. And I believe you should all see exactly who you're celebrating today." The video began playing, crystal clear footage from the Oakland loft. Manuel and Sophie entering together, his hand on her back. Sophie laughing at something he whispered in her ear. Manuel kissing her neck as she unlocked the door. The gasps turned to shocked murmurs. I heard someone say, "Oh my God," and another person whisper, "Is that Sophie?" The video cut to another scene. The bedroom. Sophie wearing the necklace I'd given her for her birthday. Manuel's hands in her hair. "Turn it off," Sophie screamed, jumping to her feet. "Turn it off right now." But the video kept playing. Weeks of footage, different dates, different outfits, same betrayal. Edgar stood up slowly, his face white as paper. "Sophie, what is this?" "I can explain," Sophie said, but her voice was barely audible over the shocked conversations erupting throughout the crowd. Manuel hadn't moved. He stood frozen at the altar, staring at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The video ended, and I picked up the microphone the officiant had dropped. "These recordings were taken over the past 4 months at properties I own," I announced to the stunned crowd. "The woman you see is my sister Sophie, who's been married to Edgar for 3 months. The man is Manuel, my fiancé and business partner." Sophie collapsed back into her chair, sobbing. Edgar was backing away from her like she was radioactive. "I want to thank you all for coming today," I continued. "I know this isn't the wedding you expected, but it's exactly the one they deserved." I folded my vows and put them back in my pocket. "To family," I said, raising an imaginary glass, "may you always know who's stabbing you in the back." The beach erupted in chaos. People were shouting, phones were out recording everything, and somewhere in the crowd, I heard Edgar's mother screaming at Sophie. Manuel finally found his voice. "Daphne, please let me explain." "Explain what, exactly?" I stepped closer to him. "Explain how you've been using my properties to sleep with my sister. Explain how you've been planning to leave me after you figured out how to steal my company." His face went gray,
How did you? I know everything, Manuel. Every hotel room, every lie, every plan you two made for your future together. I turned to address the crowd one final time. The bar is still open, and dinner will be served as planned. Consider it my gift to you for witnessing the truth. Then I walked back down the aisle, leaving my sister sobbing and my ex-fiancé standing alone at the altar, while 200 guests watched in stunned silence. Zara fell into step beside me as we reached the parking lot. "How do you feel?" she asked. I smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was genuine. Like I just took out the trash. By Monday morning, the video had gone viral. Athena had released it online exactly 2 hours after the ceremony, and by Sunday night it had 3 million views across all platforms. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters, friends, business contacts, even strangers who'd somehow gotten my number. I'd turned it off and was working from my home office when Zara arrived with coffee and a stack of newspapers. "You made the front page of 3 papers," she said, spreading them across my desk. "And not just the gossip sections. Business journals are covering it too." The headlines were brutal. "Real estate mogul exposes sister's affair at own wedding," and "The revenge wedding that broke the internet." How's the company responding? Phones are ringing off the hook. Half the calls are from reporters, but the other half are potential clients. Apparently, people respect someone who doesn't take betrayal lying down. My doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Sophie standing on my doorstep, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Should I let her in?" Zara asked. "Might as well get this over with." Sophie burst through the door the moment I opened it, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "You destroyed my life," she screamed. "How could you do this to me? I'm your sister." "You were my sister," I said calmly. "Sisters don't sleep with each other's fiancés. It wasn't supposed to happen, it just did." "For 4 months? That's a long just happened, Sophie." She collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. "Edgar left me. He won't even talk to me. His parents are threatening to sue me for emotional distress." "What did you expect?" "I expected you to handle this privately, to talk to me first, not to humiliate me in front of everyone we know." I sat down across from her. "The same way you handled sleeping with Manuel privately? The same way you talked to me before you started using my properties as your personal love nest?" "That's different." "How?" She couldn't answer that. Instead, she wiped her nose on her sleeve and looked at me with desperate eyes. "The law firm rescinded their job offer. They said they can't have someone with questionable moral character representing their clients." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Her voice cracked. "Daphne, I have nothing left. No husband, no job, no future. And it's all because of what you did. It's all because of what you did. I just made sure everyone knew about it." My phone buzzed with a text from Richard, my attorney. "Manuel's requesting an emergency meeting. Says he has information about company finances you need to hear." I showed the text to Zara, who raised an eyebrow. "What do you think he wants?" Sophie asked, reading over my shoulder. "Probably to beg for mercy," I said, "or to try some last-ditch manipulation." But I was wrong. Manuel arrived at my office that afternoon with his own attorney, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia, who looked like she ate corporate executives for breakfast. "Thank you for seeing us," Patricia said, settling into the conference room chair. "My client has some concerns about recent changes to company structure." "What changes?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. Manuel finally spoke up. "You changed my equity shares without my knowledge. That's breach of contract. I protected my company from a partner who was stealing from me. I never stole anything." I slid a folder across the table. "Unauthorized use of company properties for personal activities, misrepresentation of business expenses. And this is interesting. You've been moving company funds into offshore accounts." Manuel's face went white. "Those were legitimate business investments." "In shell companies you created without board approval? Companies that happen to be incorporated in countries with no extradition treaties? Patricia leaned forward. What are you alleging exactly? I'm alleging that your client has been embezzling company funds while planning to flee the country with my sister. That's insane. I opened another folder. Bank records, wire transfers, incorporation documents. Should I continue? The room went silent. Manuel stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Manuel will resign from the company immediately, forfeit all equity, and repay every cent he's stolen. In exchange, I won't press criminal charges. And if he refuses? Patricia asked. Then I call the FBI. Financial fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. The charges will keep him busy for the next decade. Manuel slumped in his chair. Daphne, please. We can work this out. What we had was real. What we had was a business relationship that you destroyed the moment you decided to betray me. I loved you. You loved my money, loved my... There's a difference. After they left, Zara poured herself a drink from the bar in my office. Think he'll sign? He'll sign. He's not stupid enough to go to prison for Sophie. My phone rang. It was Athena. Daphne, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. What? Are you okay? I mean, really okay? Because what you did yesterday? It was brutal. Effective, but brutal. I looked out my office window at the city skyline. I'm fine, Athena. People are calling you everything from a feminist icon to a psychopath. The internet is split down the middle. What do you think? I think you're a woman who got betrayed and decided to fight back. But I also think revenge like this comes with a cost. Everything comes with a cost. What's your cost going to be? I hung up without answering, but her question stayed with me. What was my cost going to be? That evening, alone in my penthouse, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my terrace. The city sparkled below me, millions of lights representing millions of lives, millions of stories. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video. Impressive work. We should talk. Jay. I stared at the message, wondering who Jay was and what they wanted. But for the first time in days, I felt curious instead of angry. Maybe Athena was right about costs, but maybe some costs were worth paying. The mysterious Jay turned out to be Juliet, a venture capitalist I'd heard of but never met. She called the next morning while I was reviewing the contracts Manuel had finally signed, forfeiting his equity and agreeing to repay the embezzled funds. I saw your wedding video, she said without preamble. Brilliant execution, ruthless but necessary. Thank you, I think. What can I do for you? I'd like to meet. I have a proposition that might interest you. We met that afternoon at an upscale cafe downtown. Juliet was younger than I'd expected, maybe 37, with short black hair and the kind of confidence that comes from making million-dollar decisions before breakfast. I run a tech-focused investment firm, she said, stirring her coffee. We specialize in disruptive companies led by strong founders. I'm in real estate, not tech. You're in the business of building empires. The medium doesn't matter. She leaned forward. I've been watching your company for 2 years. Your growth rate is impressive, but you're thinking too small. Excuse me? Real estate is just the beginning. With the right backing, you could expand into development, property management software, even cryptocurrency investments tied to physical assets. I studied her face. What's the catch? No catch. I invest in winners, and you're a winner. What happened at your wedding just proved it. That was personal, not business. In your world, everything is business. You turned a personal betrayal into a public relations victory. Your company's visibility has tripled in 3 days. She was right. My assistant had fielded over 200 inquiries since the video went viral. What exactly are you proposing? Partnership. I provide capital and connections, you provide vision and execution. We build something bigger than either of us could create alone. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Richard's name flashed on the screen. I need to take this, I told Juliet. Daphne, we have a problem, Richard said. Sophie's filed a lawsuit. For what? Defamation, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She's asking for 10 million in damages. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. On what grounds? She claims the video was recorded without consent and that you deliberately destroyed her reputation and career prospects. The properties were mine. I had every right to install security cameras. That's our argument. But she's hired Carrie Williams. I knew that name. Carrie was Sophie's former boss at the law firm, a shark who specialized in high-profile civil cases. This is going to get ugly, Richard continued, and expensive. After I hung up, Juliet raised an eyebrow. Legal troubles? My sister's suing me. Family lawsuits are the worst kind. They never really end, even when you win. Speaking from experience? My brother sued me when I bought out his share of our family's restaurant chain. Cost me 2 million in legal fees and destroyed our relationship permanently. She paused. But I kept the restaurants. That evening, Zara came over with takeout and wine. We sat in my living room, going through the legal documents Richard had sent over. Carrie's good, Zara said, reading Sophie's complaint. She's arguing that you used your superior resources and business connections to orchestrate a campaign of public humiliation. I exposed the truth. That's not how she's framing it. Look at this. Zara pointed to a paragraph in the filing. She's claiming you psychologically manipulated Sophie into the affair as part of a long-term plan to destroy her. That's insane. Is it? You did pay for her law school, her wedding, set her up with job connections. Carrie's going to argue you created a pattern of dependency and then used it against her. I poured myself another glass of wine. So what's our strategy? Richard thinks we should settle. Offer her $1 million to go away quietly. Absolutely not. Daphne, this could drag on for years. And even if we win, the legal costs... I'm not paying Sophie a dime for sleeping with my fiancé. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about the lawsuit. Still want to talk? Jay. I showed it to Zara. Juliet, the investor I met today. What did she want? To partner with me, expand the business. Interesting timing. The next morning brought more bad news. 3 of my biggest clients had pulled their contracts, citing concerns about ongoing legal issues and negative publicity. It's temporary, my assistant assured me. Once this blows over... What if it doesn't blow over? I asked. That afternoon, Manuel's attorney called with another surprise. My client is filing a countersuit, Patricia announced during our conference call. He's claiming you orchestrated the entire scandal to force him out of the company illegally. He embezzled money. He made investments you disagreed with. There's a difference. Those investments were unauthorized. The company bylaws give partners discretion over investment decisions under $50,000. Every transfer he made was under that threshold. I looked at Richard, who was frantically flipping through documents. She's right, he whispered. Technically, he didn't break any rules. So what's he asking for? Full reinstatement as partner, plus damages for defamation and lost income. After the call ended, I sat in my office staring at the city skyline. 2 lawsuits, fleeing clients, and a business partner who might actually have legal grounds to reclaim his position. Zara knocked on my door. There's someone here to see you. Says her name is Carrie. Sophie's attorney walked into my office like she owned it, her silver hair perfectly styled, and her suit probably worth more than most people's cars. Ms. Daphne, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I think we should talk. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do, because right now you're facing 2 separate lawsuits that could cost you everything you've built. Get to the point. My client is willing to settle for $5 million and a public apology. Your client can go to hell. Carrie smiled. I was hoping you'd say that, Because now I get to destroy you in court, and frankly, that's going to be more fun. She stood up and smoothed her skirt. See you in depositions, Ms. Daphne. I hope you're ready to explain to a jury why you thought public humiliation was an appropriate response to a private family matter. After she left, I called Juliet. Still interested in that partnership? I asked. More than ever. When can we meet? Tonight. And Juliet? I hope you meant what you said about investing in winners. Why? Because I'm about to find out if I really am one. The deposition started 3 weeks later. Carrie had turned the conference room into a battlefield with cameras, court reporters, and enough legal documents to fill a small library. State your name for the record, Carrie said, her voice sharp as a blade. Daphne Howard. And you're the defendant in both cases we're discussing today? I'm the victim who refused to stay quiet. Richard kicked me under the table. We'd rehearsed this. Stick to facts. Don't get emotional. Don't give Carrie ammunition. Let's talk about your relationship with your sister Sophie, Carrie continued. You paid for her education, correct? I helped with law school, yes. Helped? You paid the full tuition of $120,000. Yes. And you paid for her wedding? I contributed to the wedding expenses. $47,000. That's quite a contribution. Carrie flipped through her notes. You also helped her get job interviews through your professional connections. I made some introductions. Would you say Sophie was financially dependent on you? Richard leaned forward. Objection? Relevance? I'm establishing a pattern of control, Carrie said smoothly. Ms. Daphne created a situation where her sister felt obligated to maintain her approval. That's ridiculous, I said. Is it? When Sophie started her relationship with Manuel, did you increase your financial support to her? I hesitated. I don't recall. Carrie slid a bank statement across the table. This shows a transfer of $15,000 to Sophie's account 2 months after her affair began. What was that for? She said she needed help with rent. Rent on an apartment you helped her secure? Yes. So you were paying for the apartment where she lived with her husband, while she was having an affair with your fiancé, using properties you owned? The room felt like it was spinning. I didn't know about the affair then. But you suspected something, didn't you? That's why you hired a private investigator. I received an anonymous tip. From whom? I don't know. It was an unknown number. Carrie smiled like a cat who'd caught a mouse. Isn't it convenient that this anonymous tip led you to discover evidence that perfectly supported your revenge plan? I didn't plan anything. I just wanted the truth. The truth? Or did you want to destroy your sister's life because she had something you wanted? What are you talking about? Edgar. Sophie's husband. You introduced them, didn't you? My blood went cold. That's not relevant. You introduced your sister to Edgar at a company party 2 years ago. But you'd met him first, hadn't you? At a real estate conference 6 months earlier? Richard was scribbling notes frantically. Where is this going, counselor? I'm suggesting that Ms. Daphne orchestrated her sister's marriage to a man she was interested in, then used Sophie's affair as an excuse to destroy that marriage. That's insane, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. The depositions continued for 3 days. Carrie dissected every decision I'd made, every dollar I'd spent, every relationship I'd built. By the end, she'd painted me as a manipulative control freak who'd orchestrated my own sister's downfall out of jealousy and spite. How did it go? Juliet asked when I met her for dinner that night. Terrible. Carrie's good. Really good. What's your attorney's assessment? Richard thinks we should settle. Both cases. He's talking about 7 figures total. Juliet cut her steak thoughtfully. What do you want to do? Fight. But I'm not sure I can win. Sometimes winning isn't about the verdict. Sometimes it's about who you become in the process. The next morning brought unexpected news. Edgar had agreed to testify, for my side. He wants to tell his story. Richard explained over the phone, about how the affair destroyed his marriage, his trust, his entire life plan. Will that help us? It might. Juries respond to genuine emotion, and Edgar's genuinely devastated. The trial began 2 months later. The courthouse was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and business associates who'd come to watch the spectacle. Edgar took the stand on the second day. He looked older, thinner, like the betrayal had physically aged him. "I loved Sophie completely," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we were building a life together. I thought she was happy." "When did you first suspect something was wrong?" Richard asked. "She started working late, going out with friends I'd never met. When I asked about her day, she'd get defensive." Edgar's voice cracked. "I trusted her completely. I never thought—" "What was your reaction when you saw the video at the wedding?" "I felt like my entire world collapsed. Everything I thought I knew about my wife, about our marriage, about our future, it was all a lie." Carrie's cross-examination was brutal. She tried to paint Edgar as controlling, suspicious, emotionally abusive, but Edgar held his ground. "I never tried to control Sophie," he said firmly. "I loved her. I supported her career, her dreams, her relationship with her family. All I wanted was honesty." The jury was clearly moved. Several members were wiping their eyes. But Carrie wasn't finished. She called Manuel to the stand. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," Manuel said, looking directly at me. "What Sophie and I had was real. We fell in love. And Ms. Daphne's response to that love? She destroyed us, both of us. She could have handled it privately, but she chose public humiliation instead." "Why do you think she made that choice?" Manuel paused, then looked at the jury. "Because Daphne doesn't just want to win. She wants to annihilate anyone who crosses her." The words hit like a physical blow. Because deep down, I knew he was right. That night, Juliet found me on my office terrace, staring out at the city lights. "Rough day?" she asked. "They're going to find against me. Both cases." "Maybe. Does that change anything?" I turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you could go back, knowing what you know now about the cost, the lawsuits, the lost clients, the destroyed relationships, would you do it again?" I thought about Sophie sobbing at the altar, about Edgar's devastated face, about Manuel's accusations. I thought about the millions this was costing me, the reputation I was losing, the family ties I'd severed forever. "Yes," I said finally. "I'd do it again." Juliet smiled. "Then you haven't lost anything that matters." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood with 2 verdict sheets in his hands. "In the case of Sophie versus Daphne Howard, we find for the defendant. No damages awarded." I felt Zara squeeze my hand under the table. "In the case of Manuel versus Daphne Howard, we find for the defendant. No damages awarded." The courtroom erupted. Carrie's face went white. Sophie burst into tears. Manuel just stared at the jury like he couldn't believe what he'd heard. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Richard handled most of the questions, but one journalist pushed through the crowd to reach me directly. "Ms. Daphne, do you have any regrets about how you handled this situation?" I looked straight into the camera. "I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. I don't regret exposing the truth." "What's next for you?" "Building something bigger and better than what I had before." That evening, Juliet and I celebrated at her penthouse. The city sparkled below us through floor-to-ceiling windows that made my place look modest. "So what's this bigger and better thing you're building?" she asked, pouring champagne. "Tell me about your expansion ideas again." We talked until 3 a.m. By dawn, we'd outlined a partnership that would triple my company's value within 2 years. Real estate was just the foundation. We'd build property management software, develop sustainable housing projects, even create a cryptocurrency backed by physical assets. "There's one condition," Juliet said as we shook hands on the deal. "What's that?" I want you to be more than my business partner. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since we'd met. The sharp intelligence in her eyes, the confidence in her smile, the way she'd stood by me through the trial without asking for anything in return. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, I said honestly. I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm asking you to be open to the possibility. 3 months passed. The business partnership with Juliet exceeded every projection we'd made. My company's stock price doubled. We launched 2 new ventures and had investors calling daily. But the personal stuff was harder. Trust didn't come easily anymore. You're holding back, Juliet said one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports in my office. I'm being careful. There's a difference between careful and closed off. She was right, but I wasn't sure how to fix it. Sophie and Manuel had broken something in me that might never fully heal. My assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Daphne, there's a woman here who says she needs to speak with you. She won't give her name, but she says it's about your sister. I looked at Juliet, who shrugged. Send her in. The woman who entered was in her 50s, well-dressed but nervous. She clutched a manila envelope like it contained state secrets. Ms. Daphne, my name is Patricia. I worked for Carrie Williams. Carrie, Sophie's attorney. What can I do for you? Patricia glanced at Juliet, then back at me. I have information you need to see. About your sister's case. She opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of documents. Carrie fabricated evidence, the bank records she showed during depositions. They were altered. The timeline of your financial support to Sophie? Manipulated. I stared at the papers. Why are you telling me this? Because I couldn't live with what she did. You won the case anyway, but you deserve to know the truth. Why now? Patricia's voice dropped. Carrie's been disbarred. The state bar found out about other cases where she'd falsified evidence. Everything's coming out. After Patricia left, Juliet and I sat in stunned silence. So Sophie's attorney was crooked, Juliet said finally. Which means Sophie knew. She had to know. Does it matter now? Before I could answer, my assistant buzzed in again. Ms. Daphne, your sister is here. Sophie walked in wearing a server's uniform, black pants, white shirt, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted. I heard about Carrie, she said without preamble. Did you know? Sophie's shoulders sagged. I suspected. Some of the things she claimed to have found. I knew they weren't real. And you went along with it anyway. I was desperate, Daphne. I'd lost everything. My marriage, my career, my reputation. I thought if I could just get some money from you, I could start over somewhere else. So you tried to steal from me twice. I never meant for it to go that far. The affair with Manuel, it just happened. We were both unhappy, and we found comfort in each other. Comfort that cost me millions in legal fees and nearly destroyed my company. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I know I can never make this right. You're right, you can't. She nodded and turned to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, not for getting caught, for doing it in the first place. Sophie. She turned back. Don't contact me again. Ever. She nodded once and left. Juliet moved closer to me. How do you feel? Empty, but also free. Free enough to try something new? I looked at her, this brilliant, loyal woman who'd stood by me through the worst period of my life without asking for anything in return. Ask me again in 6 months, she smiled. I can wait. Good, because I'm worth waiting for. Yes, she said, kissing me softly. You are. Outside my office window, the city hummed with life and possibility. I'd lost a sister and a fiancé, but I'd gained something more valuable. The knowledge that I could survive anything. That I could be betrayed, sued, publicly humiliated, and still come out stronger. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about Carrie. You think it's over? I showed it to Juliet, who raised an eyebrow. "Sophie?" she asked. "Probably." "Are you worried?" I deleted the message and put my phone away. I'm not scared anymore. Of Sophie, of betrayal, of anything. I know exactly who I am now. "And who's that?" I smiled, looking out at the empire I'd built and nearly lost and built again. Someone who doesn't forgive. Someone who doesn't forget. Someone who wins. That sounds lonely. It would be, if I were alone. I took Juliet's hand and squeezed it. The future stretched ahead of us, uncertain, challenging, but mine to shape. And this time, I'd be more careful about who I trusted with it.